Hello, and welcome to Episode 2 of the audio companion to my book, The Imperfect and Unfinished Math Teacher. My name is Chase, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm recording these opening episodes from the family farm in Independence, Oregon, and you'll hear birds in the background, among other things, and I hope it adds a nice touch for us. All right, in Episode 1, I invited you to embark on a journey to reclaim control over our professional development, so that we can position ourselves as capable, self-directed learners. As imperfect as we are, we have so much to learn from each other about how we can flourish and remain unfinished teachers. I also shared a story about Rudy and the dilemma I faced about whether or not he should pass Algebra 2 and graduate. Almost everything I share in these episodes, I learned in my career after Rudy. It was a pivotal moment that ultimately led me to you right now as a co-thinking partner on this journey with you. After failing Rudy, I knew I could no longer go on being the teacher that I was. I was professionally, broken, defeated, and forced to rethink my professional purpose and reevaluate the reasons, the whys behind my teaching and why I became a math teacher in the first place. And that is what I'm asking us to do in this episode, to rethink our professional purpose and the whys behind our teaching and the work that we do. And to do that, I invite us to make the same shift in our professional identity, to see ourselves less as teachers of math content and more as cultural stewards, caretakers of the math stories our students are authoring in our classrooms. In fewer words, I'm inviting us to be less content-focused so we can become more story-focused, and to understand why we need to make this shift and why we must make this shift together. We start with Brenda and her math story. Brenda is telling me about her work as a chef. We've just met, and I can tell from her body language that she's passionate about what she does. She's leaning forward and gestures openly as she talks. She has me interested, engaged. When she asks what I do, I hesitate for a quick moment, right? This moment in social conversation is a pivotal one that I often face as a former high school math teacher. Once people find out what I do, any established rapport suddenly becomes threatened. Some folks are enthused about my work, but far too many have the same reaction as Brenda. There's a noticeable shift in the energy of the conversation. The body language becomes more guarded as they lean back, expressing a troubled, sometimes even pained emotion on their face, just as Brenda is doing right now.
I am not a math person.
Her tone sounds almost apologetic, as if she's embarrassed to share this news. I assure her that she is not alone. I have heard others say this many times before over the years. And when I ask her why she believes this about herself, she begins to tell me her math story.
I always got good grades in math, but I didn't always understand it. I was just good at school in general and had a knack for memorizing math facts and the steps for getting the right answers. Because of my grades, I was recommended for honors level math in 8th grade. I remember the teacher would set up competitions in class. He would put us in groups and see who could get the answers the fastest and awarded points for both speed and accuracy. I couldn't work as fast as the others in my group. The pressure made me forget everything. I began to hate class. My group never did well, and I felt stupid because I didn't get math as quickly as my classmates did. In high school, it just got worse. I remember getting sick my junior year and missing 2 weeks of school. I was already way behind, and when I came back, nothing made sense in math class. I would break down and cry at least once a week. I remember the teacher trying to comfort me and said, "Don't beat yourself up. Everyone has their limit in math. Maybe this is yours." I guess I thought that was true because I never took another math class again. I wanted to be done forever. And it hasn't bothered me until recently. My daughter Paige is in 7th grade now, and I get anxious when I help her with her homework. She's falling behind. Because of her low test scores, she has to go to intervention after school, and she feels dumb. I just don't want her to end up like me, hating math. I want her to feel empowered in the challenges she's going to face, but I don't know how to help her.
Oof. Here's a capable and talented woman with a successful career as a chef, a craft that requires a lot of mathematical competence, who doubts her ability to reason through her daughter's 7th grade math homework. Like any parent, she wants her child to be successful in mathematics, and she's worried that because she doesn't consider herself a math person, she's going to limit her daughter's potential. We all have a math story, a story that we tell ourselves about our math identity and what it means to be good at math. And while Brenda's math story is unique to her, it is not all that uncommon, is it? I'm sure you know many people who have their own unproductive relationship with math. And a discouraging number of people don't have a productive math story because their learning needs, whether emotional, social, cognitive, or otherwise, weren't met in the math classroom. At some point in their schooling, they, like Brenda, decided that math wasn't for them. And why haven't we, as a society, been able to do a better job of creating citizens who have a positive disposition toward mathematics? In other words, why is math class still not working for so many math students? Now, our journey together requires us to be critical of the system we work in without being critical of the people we work with. And I want to be very clear that I'm not blaming you or anyone else for our cultural math story. I'm not pointing fingers when I ask these questions. And as colleagues, we must learn to give each other grace because we all have what my friend Matt Vaudry calls cringe and do better moments. So if you find yourself resenting Brenda's Algebra 2 teacher for what they said, I ask that you suspend your judgments and give them some grace. Just the way you gave me grace for how I handled my dilemma with Rudy. We are all imperfect. We all have cringe and do better moments. And it's important that we learn to give each other grace. It's how we learn to build the trustworthy relationships we need on our journey. No one in the education system wants to rob students of their mathematical identity and agency. Our cultural math story is the natural and unavoidable outcome of decades of policies in math education that have, for the most part, been extremely unproductive toward improving outcomes in our math classes in meaningful ways. In other words, our cultural math story is a systemic problem. And we work in a system that takes a one-size-fits-all standardized mindset to what goes on in the math classroom. And this top-down bureaucratic approach creates equity issues because it actively diminishes the math identities of students and damages their relationships with mathematics. And that's why we have Brenda and why we have such an unhealthy cultural math story. It's also why it's so easy to be discouraged as a math teacher these days. We want more of our students to have more productive math stories, but everywhere we look, K-12, we find ourselves stuck in a system that doesn't empower us to do that. And I know our professional landscape is filled with obstacles that work against our ability to meet the myriad of learning needs our students bring into the classrooms every day. Setting aside the massive impact of the socioeconomic inequalities we see in the demographics of our students, we continually have to navigate outlandish class sizes, tolerate draconian budget cuts, and use adopted textbooks that seem to suck the joy out of both learning and teaching mathematics. The politics of grades, standardized tests, report cards, teacher evaluations, and school improvement plans, all the top-down systemic measures of accountability and compliance, continue to drag our focus away from what matters most to all of us, helping our students author a healthy math story. And in order to change our cultural math story, we must have the courage to focus on the area in the system that we can influence as classroom teachers. And that is our own professional learning. Because one of the major reasons math class still isn't working for so many math students is because professional development still isn't working for so many math teachers. And it's why I'm offering us this journey, not just to reclaim control over our professional growth so we can become thriving teachers, but also so that we can reclaim control over our teaching legacy and the math stories that we're going to leave behind in this world. Imagine for a moment that we're all in the room together as a collective group of K-12 math teachers. And we start talking to each other about our reasons for why we teach math to our students. Start talking about the purpose of math class. And what would we all have in common when it came to our professional purpose? Over the years, I've learned that our professional whys fall into two categories. And the first category could be labeled as content-focused. That despite different grade levels, we would all agree that our job at K-12 is to teach students math content. And the second category could be labeled as story-focused. We all want our students to develop a positive disposition toward mathematics, a positive math identity along with an empowered sense of agency, and leave our classrooms at the end of the year with a math story that is always unfinished. We want all of our students to become lifelong learners who are curious and capable problem solvers, not to mention parents who enjoy thinking mathematically with their children who will become students in our future math classes. And to be clear, we are all both content-focused and story-focused in our professional identity. We are all professionally nourished when we see our students learning math content and also authoring a healthy math story. But when we talk with one another about the content-focused parts of our professional identity, we can easily retreat to the silos of our own grade levels and course content. What do you think would eventually happen in that room as we kept talking about our professional purpose? I think that we would start to form smaller groups. Elementary and middle school teachers would start to find each other and form smaller grade level groups. The high school teachers would find each other. Algebra 1 teachers would form a group next to the Algebra 2 teachers, with geometry teachers sitting somewhat awkwardly in between them. Special education and other support staff would probably form their own groups as well. And the more that we all talked about our roles and the content we teach, the smaller and more plentiful the groups would become. The point here is, when we are content-focused, we easily become divided into our systemic silos, and we create the illusion that we all have different jobs because we are all teaching different content. And this can create some dilemmas that threaten our sense of coherence and focus on this journey. Because we work in a system that is only capable of being content-focused. Standardization, efficiency, synchronicity, compliance, conformity, assessment, and accountability, all enforced in a system of silos that divide us and encourage us to treat our students like they're test scores that need to be raised year after year. And that's why I'm asking us to make this fundamental shift toward thinking of ourselves more as cultural stewards of the math stories our students are authoring. It reminds us that we all have the same job, the same professional purpose, to help our students form a positive math identity and create a positive lifelong relationship with mathematics. And this shift helps draw us out of the silos that can divide us and position us to navigate the headwinds that are working against us. Remember, there will always be headwinds on our journey. Our work is disruptive after all. We're going against the status quo. And pushing back on the institutional norms that diminish our sense of professional flourishment and diminish our cultural math story isn't going to be easy work. We're going to need each other. And that's why we're taking this journey together. Between now and next time, I invite you to make the shift and become more story-focused in your professional identity. Learn to see your math classroom less as a place where students learn math content and more as a place where students author their math story. and begin to measure yourself less by the standardized test scores and other traditional forms of assessment data, and to measure ourselves more by the quality of the human data in our classrooms that tell us our students are engaged, thinking, and thriving. The shift is not a mandate. It's simply an invitation for us to do less of what we're currently doing so that we can start doing more of what will help us become thriving math teachers. To guide your thinking, ask yourselves and each other these questions. When students walk out of your classroom at the end of the school year, what do you want them to say about themselves as mathematical thinkers? How do you want them to act when they face mathematical challenges in their lives? And also ask each other, how do you want to be remembered by your students? What do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to leave behind? If you're following along in my book, you can find these questions on page 55. If you want to buy the book, just search for The Imperfect and Unfinished Math Teacher. You'll find it. As always, I invite you to share this video with your colleagues. Invite them to join us on this journey and share with one another what makes you a story-focused teacher. Let's help each other become the thriving teachers we want to become. I'll see you down the road.